Hello everyone and welcome to our Gaia SBF. You need to hear this if you're a global citizen. Today we're diving headfirst into the murky, anxiety-inducing waters of international relations. Specifically, we're looking at the potential fallout from decisions made by, and I can barely believe I'm saying this with a straight face, former President Donald Trump. Yes, that's right, the man who thought windmills caused cancer and that injecting bleach could cure COVID also had his tiny, Cheeto-dusted fingers on the levers of global power. Now, you might be thinking, John, Trump's been out of office for a hot minute now. Can't we just move on? And to that I say, bless your optimistic heart. Unfortunately, the answer is a resounding, oh hell no. You see, the ripple effects of his decisions, particularly regarding China, are still being felt across the globe, and things could get spicy. Think of it like this. Imagine someone microwaving a fish in the office break room. Sure, they eventually take it out and try to air out the stench. But that lingering aroma of questionable life choices, yeah, that's Trump's legacy in the world of geopolitics. So, buckle up as we unpack 5 potentially catastrophic scenarios that could spring from the ashes of his presidency like some sort of dystopian phoenix made entirely of bad decisions and Twitter rants. Today we're diving into 5 potentially dangerous scenarios that could arise from decisions made by Donald Trump regarding China, global economic policies, or military actions. These decisions could have significant consequences for Europe and Canada. Our first stop on this tour of potential global meltdowns is the always thrilling world of trade. Now, I know what you're thinking. John, you promised me explosions, intrigue, maybe a car chase. This sounds about as exciting as watching paint dry in a library. And you'd be right if we were talking about normal, sane trade negotiations. But this is Trump's America we're talking about, so naturally we're throwing logic and reason out the window and replacing them with impulsive tariffs and enough bluster to make a hurricane jealous. Trump's trade war with China, which he, in his infinite wisdom, declared easy to win, has been about as successful as the screen door on a submarine. Tariffs, those lovely little taxes on imported goods, have done a bang-up job of driving up prices for consumers and businesses alike. It's like trying to put out a fire with gasoline. Sure, it's dramatic, but it's not exactly an effective strategy. And the worst part, this isn't some contained dumpster fire. The fallout from this economic squabble has the potential to spill over into the global market, impacting everyone from German automakers to Canadian lumberjacks. Remember that whole globalized economy thing? Yeah, well, it turns out that when one of the world's largest economies throws a temper tantrum and starts slapping tariffs on everything that moves, it tends to have some rather unpleasant consequences for everyone else. We're talking supply chain disruptions, job losses, and a general sense of economic unease that would make even the most seasoned Wall Street trader break out in a cold sweat. It's enough to make you want to hoard toilet paper and canned goods. Oh wait, we already did that. All right, strap in folks, because things are about to get a bit more explosive. We're moving on to the always tense realm of military relations with China, and let's just say things are about as comfortable as a pair of skinny jeans after a Thanksgiving feast. See, Trump's approach to foreign policy, particularly when it comes to China, could best be described as aggressively poking a panda with a stick. And as anyone who's ever seen a panda go to town on a bamboo shoot knows, they might look cuddly, but they are not to be trifled with. We're talking about a man who once suggested that maybe, just maybe, the US should consider using its nuclear arsenal on hurricanes. Spoiler alert, that's a terrible idea, even by Trumpian standards. Now, imagine that same level of strategic brilliance being applied to issues like Taiwan and the South China Sea. 2 incredibly complex and volatile flashpoints that could easily escalate into a full-blown international incident. It's like giving a toddler a loaded weapon and telling them to go play in a fireworks factory. And here's the kicker. It's not just the US and China that would get caught in the crossfire. The potential for this kind of conflict to draw in NATO allies, including Canada and European nations, is very real. Suddenly, we're not just talking about a regional dust-up, but a global conflagration with the potential to make World War II look like a playground scuffle. So yeah, maybe we should, not tempt fate by letting a man who thinks climate change is a Chinese hoax dictate our military strategy. Just a thought. Okay, so we've covered trade wars and the looming threat of military conflict. Fun times, right? But hold on to your hats, folks, because we're about to delve into the thrilling world of global economic instability. I know, it's not exactly a Michael Bay film, but trust me, this has the potential to be just as dramatic, albeit with fewer explosions and considerably more graphs. See, Trump's brand of economic nationalism, with its focus on protectionist policies and a healthy dose of America First rhetoric, might sound good in a campaign speech, but in reality, it's about as effective as a chocolate fireguard. Withdrawing from key trade agreements, slapping tariffs on allies and enemies alike, it's all part of a grand plan to, well, honestly, it's not entirely clear what the plan is, beyond throwing a wrench into the gears of the global economy and seeing what happens. What happens, you ask? Well, for starters, everyone else gets caught in the economic crossfire. We're talking job losses, reduced exports, and a general sense of financial panic that would make the 2008 crisis look like a walk in the park. Think of it like this: the global economy is a delicate ecosystem, and Trump's policies are the equivalent of dumping a truckload of pesticides into the water supply. Sure, some things might survive, but the overall impact is going to be pretty damn devastating. All right, let's take a break from the doom and gloom of potential economic collapse and military misadventures to talk about something a bit more existential. Yes, my friends, it's time to discuss the elephant in the room, or rather, the rapidly melting glacier in the Arctic climate change. Now, I know this is supposed to be about Trump's decisions, and some might argue that his impact on the environment is neither here nor there in the grand scheme of things. But to those people I say, have you been living under a rock? Or perhaps more accurately, a rapidly shrinking ice cap? Because let's be clear, Trump's stance on climate change wasn't just ignorant, it was downright dangerous. From pulling out of the Paris Climate Agreement to rolling back environmental regulations with the enthusiasm of a kid in a candy store, he essentially gave the middle finger to the future of our planet. It's like watching someone throw gasoline on a bonfire while simultaneously yelling at the firefighters for not doing enough to put it out. And the worst part, the consequences of his actions, or rather his inaction, will be felt for generations to come. We're talking more extreme weather events, rising sea levels, mass displacement of populations, basically all the fun stuff that comes with turning our planet into a giant greenhouse gas experiment. So yeah, maybe we should be a little concerned about the guy who thinks wind turbines cause cancer being allowed anywhere near environmental policy. Just a thought. And finally, we arrive at our last stop on this whirlwind tour of potential global disasters, the potential fracturing of the West. Now, I know what you're thinking, John. You've already subjected us to trade wars, military brinkmanship, economic meltdown, and the apocalypse by climate change. What more could you possibly throw at us? And to that, I say buckle up, Buttercup, because this one's a doozy. See, Trump's approach to foreign policy, if you can even call it that, was less diplomacy and more throwing darts at a map of the world while blindfolded. Alliances were questioned, agreements were torn up, and long-standing partnerships were strained to their breaking point. It was like watching a bull in a china shop, if that bull was also tweeting insults at the china while simultaneously trying to sell it fake steaks. And the consequences of this diplomatic dumpster fire? Well, let's just say that the West, that once united front against tyranny and oppression, is looking a little worse for wear these days. NATO, the cornerstone of transatlantic security, has been weakened, and the US, once seen as a reliable leader on the world stage, is now viewed with suspicion and distrust by many of its closest allies. It's enough to make you wonder if maybe, just maybe, having a president who understands the difference between diplomacy and a Twitter feud might be a good idea in the future. Well, folks, there you have it. 5 terrifyingly plausible scenarios that could spring from the ashes of the Trump presidency. It's enough to make you want to crawl under a rock and wait for the apocalypse to pass. But before you start stockpiling canned goods and building your underground bunker, take a deep breath. Remember, these are just potential scenarios, not guaranteed outcomes. That being said, it's crucial to acknowledge the very real risks posed by Trump's decisions on China, global economic policy, military strategy, and climate change. The world is a complex and interconnected place, and the actions of one nation, particularly a nation as powerful as the United States, can have far-reaching and often unintended consequences. So what can we do? Well, for starters, we can stay informed, engage in thoughtful debate, and hold our leaders accountable for their actions. We can demand policies that prioritize cooperation, sustainability, and the common good. And perhaps most importantly, we can refuse to succumb to fear and cynicism. The future may be uncertain, but it is not yet written. And if we work together, we might just be able to steer clear of these potential disasters and chart a course towards a brighter, more stable future. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more videos.